waiting for the start. No. So preparing the implementation of, the politics and policies of implementing personalized medicine. So preparing for the implementation means translating science and technology into policies and practice. And that is not easy. That's a long marathon. And we had seen some of the really details which Andrew described. So why are we discussing in the moment about personalized medicine so much? And what is the agenda setting for personalized medicine? And I would like to show this from the European perspective and why it's now time to bring in the nanomedicine. So why now personalized medicine? We know that there is very little evidence that what we are doing. So only 15% of our interventions in the clinics, in the health system, are currently evidence-based. There is not this one-size-fits-all, and we need to look more targeted, personalized intervention based on also patients' needs, really. And we need complementary intervention running in parallel on population level, subpopulation, and also individual level. And why we are there is not only because of basic research in genomics, but also because of these analytical or enabling technologies providing that evidence. And that's why we need to understand and translate the evidence of your work into policies and practice. From the genomic side, it's clear we are in the area now of the personal genome, to understand the dynamics of information, of non-linear networks, for example, in systems biology, that we are much beyond already these 4 Ps from Lee Hood, what he described first, that we understand that almost all disease is a rare disease, that we have certain disease nodes which lead us to a new taxonomy of diseases, that we have to look for more risk patterns during the life course of a patient, of a person, of a citizen, and something like personal utility replacing clinical utility. And epigenomics seem to be very crucial in that understanding also of the pathomechanism as a missing link between environmental factors and biomedicine, and also telling us that we need to look more for personal, for individual reactions, responses, etc. And we know that all diseases, without any exemption, I would say, are due to these genome-environmental interactions, whether it's chemical, let's think about pesticides, biological, physically, and even social environment. A lot of studies about loneliness and the impact, for example. And we learn more and more about the exposome, and also the xenobiotica had been mentioned before. How does this environmental exposure work in our body? The microbiome is something more which we have to learn, where we will learn much more in the future. So, but the analytical enabling technologies, there is a wide range, and it becomes very clear that also these technologies are interacting, that also on individual level we might use different interoperabilities of different technologies. So nanotechnologies, you know, about the nanopore sensors, imaging, cloud computing, 3D printing, lab on a chip, organ on a chip, NGS, autofluorescent page fingerprint, for example, CRISPR, tissue engineering, virtual individual models. Hans will talk about more about that, medical devices. It's a long list, but nanomedicine is everywhere almost, in sensors, nanosensors, imaging, then lab on a chip, for example, then also in tissue engineering, and I think Heike will tell more about that. It seems to be very clear that nanomedicine plays a central role there. The future is to translate highly dynamic personal health information into the healthcare systems, and how we are doing it. And there we need certainly also approaches like big data analytics, actionable big data. So what is the agenda setting for personalized medicine in Europe at the moment? My own field, original, is public health genomics, where we set that's the responsible and effective translation from genome-based knowledge and technologies into public policy and health services for the benefit of population health. And this is so much true still, because we choose there also technologies and the interoperability also of different technologies and how to apply them on individual level. So what did we do in Europe in personalized medicine? There had been under Horizon 2020 a call for shaping Europeans' vision for personalized medicine. And so there had been for 2 years running a coordination support action, but it was not a normal project. Here the partners had been the funding bodies and the policymakers, health and research ministries from many countries, and also industry regulatory bodies had been part of it. And the aim was to prepare a strategic research and innovation agenda for Europe, like a research roadmap. And we came up with that report and defined 5 challenges: developing awareness and empowerment, integrating big data and ICT solutions, translating basic to clinical research and beyond, bringing innovation to the market, and shaping sustainable healthcare. And it's a circle of these 5 challenges, and you can see and read much more in this report how they also interact and what are good examples, where are we now, who are the stakeholders involved. And just to give 3 examples, there's much more behind the challenges, how we described it or what we identified as where we need to work on. And that is, for example, what is the role of the patient, of the citizen? What about whom does the data belong to? The citizen ownership, for example, control of data. Then also trust models, health data cooperatives, for example. Then integrating big data and ICT solutions to understand that every individual is its own clinical trial. I have my own reference points, and at what time in life do we refer to these reference points? Then that we need to combine all kinds of data and create unstructured, structured, semi-structured for unknown purposes, future purposes. That we create maybe a messiness in the moment and look for correlations or hypotheses, like Andrew said, that we look that by getting the computer running to the data, finding new patterns and then following that. And from there, from this fuzziness, to come to actionable big data. And another one, again, the virtual self or the virtual patient. Under bringing innovation to the market, we will have here, or had already, some sessions with the regulatory bodies. So to understand personalized medicine as a very holistic approach to personal health and care, so not only omics, which is often it's reduced to that. That we have guiding principles in Europe, for example, which can help already in the implementation. We have common health values also. Ethical values, we have something like health in all policies, that health can be also regulated in other fields like environment, safety, tax, etc. And that we have many directives, very new, the medical device regulation, clinical trial regulation, cross-border directive, and also to work with best practices in that field. Because if we have something new and we don't know what the futures, it's better to not maybe come up with directives and to keep it in the what we call soft laws, like these best practices. This is an example of how the landscape is of European approval and reimbursement processes to personalized medicine, therapeutic products and medical devices, and there will be more this afternoon in the session. And also, for example, what is the role of EMA, what is the role of the notified bodies. It's a very interesting area, but where it's not often so clear, I think, where the boundaries are. And so the question often is, are there differences in approval between personalized medicine therapeutic products and other chemical or biological products? And there seem to be no difference. And so we can use the current tools to access to the market, for example, orphan drug designation, adaptive pathways, and make use of it. Are there opportunities for international synergies? Yes, to align, for example, the international regulations and policies, to start something like systematic early dialogue between the many of the stakeholders, the basic scientists, policymakers, industry, patients, citizens, etc. And to work towards this more personal utility. What does it mean? What are the consequences? How to implement that into the care? Then, following this personalized medicine sphere, the European Commission has established the International Consortium Permit Medicine now, supported also by that time the Luxembourg EU presidency, which came up with European Council conclusions on personalized medicine 2015. But IC Permit started officially in 2016. And already now even more than 28 countries, regions in Europe joined, but also Canada, and now India will also become partner, and also other continents. So that will be a good platform also to bring in the research questions. What are actions we need to do in the next years? Also preparing, for example, what are the topics beyond Horizon 2020, FP9 and beyond. What we can learn from personalized medicine is that it was always a streamlined process, much more like in the US, for example, where it started already in 2006 with under other headings, that there was and is a strong political commitment. And the vision statement, really, we can learn that basic research has been the driver and is a driver, and together with the demands or the needs of other stakeholders, and most important, they're also the patients and the citizens. Thank you. Maybe one question? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Been the policy around direct-to-consumer testing?
Pardon?
I was just curious, thinking of policies, what's been the approach around direct-to-consumer testing for genetic tests in personalized medicine?
The question is whether one can regulate that, or whether in the end it is more investing in issues like literacy, health literacy of stakeholders, of doctors, of patients, of citizens, and but I think it is impossible that it's whether it's through the internet, whether it's over the counter. It is I think not doable or not realistic. And maybe Ansgar would like to say more or directly to that. You're more an expert on that as well.
No, I also think it's certainly a challenge to think in conventional regulation terms about this. Thinking of our regulatory agency on the pharmaceutical side, well, it has learned how to handle specific companies. There are not that many, but now in this field you see so many actors. It's a considerable new challenge, and I think it's something that occupies regulatory agencies to understand what is realistic in terms of regulation and what is probably realistic in investing into literacy, health literacy, so that patients can ultimately be more informed consumers of this technology. Not an easy space.
Thank you. Short, please. Thank you.
Very short. The phrase personalized medicine itself is one of those that everybody gives a different meaning, and certainly not personalized, because that belongs to the impossible. I'm just curious that how do you So what do you consider personalized medicine? It's your personal opinion. Just.
Yeah, what I said in the introduction, I think there's really something fundamentally new. We always, also as doctor, we had to look for the person, but we applied not very personalized approaches. But here, I think what really is new that we don't, for example, look at the population and divide and then come to the patient, but more bottom up to gather data, to understanding mechanistic pathways also on the individual level, and then to come up with strategies, interventions. So I prefer like more individualized, really individualized approaches, but not top down, stratifying in that direction, because then we are also working with averages and with biases, and but really starting from the opposite. I think, to be fair to the other speakers, maybe at the end, yeah, is that fine with you?